Welcome back to Hot Flashes and Cool Topics. Today we have on an amazing guest, Melissa Gilbert, actress, producer, director, but I would say after this new book that just came out, chicken mom, gardener, chef extraordinaire. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. You used so many words to describe me. It just made me instantly sleepy.
Oh, well, I think as we get to this age, our titles do kind of change and our priorities shift. I mean, we're always mom. We're always mom and we're always woman, but
yeah,
priorities kind of shift. So back to the Prairie, a home remade, a life rediscovered. What a great book. I just thoroughly enjoyed it. Bridget did as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
And it's
Very
kind of a
similar.
180 from your first book.
Yeah.
Just a
You could
little
say
bit.
that.
Can you share what made you say it's time to write a new one?
It actually wasn't even my idea. As funny as that sounds, I've just been living my life and doing my thing. And I have, like everyone, I have social media, and I post more now, especially with the book coming out, because I have to. I actually have a schedule that I have to keep up with, which is, I'm not a social media maven by any stretch. I just post things that I find interesting, or if my pets do something cute, or my grandkids do something cute, or my husband does something cute. But now I have to do all this posting. Anyway, during the pandemic, I shouldn't say during the pandemic, because we're still in a pandemic, but during lockdown in the beginning, that first year, I found social media to be very much a lifeline for a lot of us, and for myself too, just as a reminder that I wasn't alone. So I started posting a lot more content than usual. And I posted our meal boards. I got this, it's like sticky letter thing, like a sandwich board sort of for the kitchen. And I would post our dinner for the day and then a quote of the day. And it just sort of, it evolved from there. And then when summer came around and we built the garden and we built the chicken coops and we got the chicks, I posted about that. And I posted about everything that was going on at that exact time. And a lot of the posts I did talked about how it felt similar to stuff I'd experienced on Little House on the Prairie, not in my life, but on Little House on the Prairie. And the next thing I know, I got a call from CBS this morning, and they said, we want to come up and do a story about your pandemic life. It's very inspirational that you've gone, and they said it, back to the prairie lifestyle, and that you're sort of living like Laura Ingalls Wilder with your garden and your chickens, and you're up in the mountains and you have bears on your property and you're dirty all the time. And so they came up and it aired, and my literary agent called me, Dan Strone, and he said, this is a book. And I said, is it really? And he said, are you kidding? The things you have been going through and the things that you have done and the way you've handled all of this, and then watching you talk about this and the whole, with you and the connection with Little House on the Prairie, and now you're living like Laura Ingalls Wilder sort of, and this is a book, you should write it. And I thought about it and I thought, well, let's see what happens. I'll start writing and we'll see. And then we went to Simon and Schuster first, and they went, don't go anywhere else. We took your first book, we want it. So then I had to write it, and it just sort of evolved from there. I would just sit in the kitchen and write this story that I had just lived through. And it was actually easier for me than my very first book, because it was much fresher, although my memory is not what it was with the first book. I didn't have to, with the first book, I went back so far that I actually had this big trunk with all of my old, love this, file of faxes in it that had all of my appointments, so I could go back and make sure I got all my dates right. This one, I didn't have to do that quite as much with, although there was a lot of, hey, honey, remember that time we went to, what was that? Was it June? No, July. Was it August? Was it, you don't know either? Okay. Yeah, I'll see if it's in the calendar. That's sort of how this book kind of came to be. But it was actually great fun to write it. And I realized in the course of writing it that though we were going through a really difficult time that first year of lockdown, those first 2 years actually of the pandemic, and going through all of the racial reckoning and social unrest and the political climate that surrounded it. It was a very, very difficult time, but it was also an incredibly grounding time for me, and a real opportunity to continue the shedding of all the stuff that I didn't need and getting down to what I really needed in life, the things that were most important, my family, my health, and that's it. And then everything that goes with that, making sure that they're healthy and that everybody has the food they need, the medicine they need. And when the world is scrambling for toilet paper, suddenly all the crap that was important just doesn't seem important anymore.
Exactly. Yeah, it really resonated with me because I was just relating. It was funny during that time. It wasn't funny, but I started hearkening back to Little House on the Prairie because I started thinking, what if things aren't in supply? What if you can't find things? I went into almost the hoarding mode where I was doing Marie Kondo. And then all of a sudden I was like, no, don't throw away anything. We were trying to make masks. You couldn't find elastic. One of my sisters is texting us saying, cut up old underwear. They have elastic in it, and things like that. And trying to be resourceful, like you were doing in this book, which is so amazing that everything with the farm purchase kind of happened along the times of the pandemic.
It goes to show me and Tim that, if we ever doubted for a moment that we were not in the right place at the right time doing the right thing, which my therapist used to say to me constantly, we're always in the right place at the right time doing the right thing, even if it's painful. And then she would say, especially if it's painful. And the fact that we bought this place, renovated it, gutted it, made it year round, because it had no heat. It had, I wrote in the book, it was full of other people's crap. I can't even think of a better word for that. And it needed all kinds of stuff. And we were able to get all of that done by Christmas of 2019. And by February 13th of 2020, we didn't leave for months and months and months. And we wouldn't have been able to stay here otherwise. We would have been stuck in New York City, which was horrible for so many people who were there. A horrible place to be in the beginning of the pandemic.
I think it's really interesting in the book that you I think it's so relatable because you take on the challenge of purchasing this home, which maybe 20 years ago, you would have taken a look at that house and said, what are you thinking? This is never going to happen. Mm-hmm. But the challenge became joy for you. You found joy in every step of the challenge. And I think a lot of women over 40 can relate to that because we don't necessarily want to take on the world, but we want to feel like we still have those challenges ahead of us. Can you talk a little bit about the story leading up to purchasing the house and why you guys wanted to have something in the Catskills?
Well, first of all, we fell in love with the Catskills the first time we came up here together. We'd both been up here separately over the course of many, many decades. But we knew if we were going to live in New York City, which we really wanted to, that we needed an escape. Because in Michigan, we had land when we lived there for 5 years. For the first year, we were down in a small town in Howell, Michigan. And then we moved about 25 minutes away to Brighton, Michigan, where we had 35 acres around us. And so we knew we wanted that, but we weren't really 100% set on getting it. And also, I wrote about our financial situation. You know how much we paid for the house. You know that, how we had to DIY so much of it ourselves and how intense our budget was. And so we were kind of waiting for the right time. And then that actually was more meaningful to me than any giant house I could have hired a bunch of people to do for me.
Yeah, I could smell what was happening in that house when you described how you were.
You don't even want to know. I mean, because when I didn't describe everything that was in there before I described the smell. I just described the smell and said it was kind of musty. But if you read on and you know that there were mattresses full of mice, some of them were dead. There was food in the cupboards. There was moldy soap in the shower. There was shampoo. Everything was wet because the house tends to hold on to moisture, and it had been empty for about 20 years, except for all the crap that people had left behind. So you can imagine it smelled like a tomb. It was just terrible.
I was thinking bat cave. I was like, are
Right.
you going to do a bat cave? And I was like, that's his
Yes.
thoughts. But I've been in situations like that, or not myself lived, but my family had different properties and things that we had to help clean out. I'm like, oh, I can feel that on my hands. I can smell that right now in my nose.
Yeah.
What she is going through right now. But I
That
think
was nasty. That was
Yeah.
nasty.
And it's so amazing though, what you were able to do, just how you said you're the assembler of things, putting together these huge tools. And wow, I mean, I thought that was really incredible. Was that something you just picked up in this at this time, or were you always like that?
I've always been the assembler. When the kids were little, I put all the toys together at Christmas time. And I was always the one with the most patience. And then also this sort of little engineer inside me that just loves to follow directions and put things together. I'll tell you though, here's the most hellacious assembly I've ever experienced in my life. My kids, Michael wasn't even born yet. So I had Dakota was probably 5, and his older brothers, Sam and Lee Boxleitner, were probably 12 and 15. And they were all into Power Rangers this one year. And they wanted all the Power Rangers toys. And so you couldn't buy them. And I found a store in LA that had all the things they want, like the Megatrons and the big put together giant things. And so I got them for them, and I sat down on Christmas Eve to put them together. And the instructions were all in Japanese. And I started at 10 p.m. and I finished at 6 a.m. I crawled up the stairs and I hear, "Did Santa come?" Like 10 minutes later.
Oh.
It was the worst. And they had tiny little parts, and then everything had stickers that went on it after. Oh, it's just like one thing. But I did it. I did.
Man. That's flashbacks. I can remember times like that, Christmases like that.
In our house, it was all Barbies. Barbie this, Barbie that.
I have hot glue gun my hand to my pants once. I've stapled the tip of my finger. I mean, it's insane, but I do it. And I actually like to do it. It's now a given in our house that I read the instructions.
Wow.
Tim just hands them to me now. He doesn't even say anything. He just goes, here's this. Tell me what I need to do.
That makes a good team, and you guys are a good team. So
Mhm.
and I thought, it was interesting in the book. I actually pulled out a quote because I think it really resonates. You said, "Before Tim, I always felt like I had to make my own abilities and accomplishments smaller to allow the men I was with to feel confident, bigger, macho, and in control." That's a huge self-revelation, but did you even realize you were doing that at the time?
No, not in the beginning. Certainly not, when I was in at the beginning of dating, in my teens and my 20s, and my first relationship, my first marriage, my second marriage. I didn't start to feel that until I wasn't conscious of it, I would say, until I was probably 40. And it was when I turned 40 that I went, I'm the president of a union. This is a big deal, and we treat it like it's nothing, and it really shouldn't be. And it should be a priority, and it should be something that everyone's supportive of. Why am I making it not a big deal? And that's sort of when I started thinking, okay, this is not something I want to do anymore. I would like to be proud of my accomplishments, and I would like some support in walking through them as I move forward with each new thing I do. And being married to Tim, not only is he comfortable in his own skin enough to allow me to do these things, but he pushes me to do stuff I wouldn't do ordinarily. Like I did a one-woman show in New York just before the pandemic. I think I want to say it was summer of 19, maybe 18. No, I don't, one of the two. And when the offer came for me to do it, my first thought was, oh, and I said to him, this is scary. I don't know if I can. He went, of course you can. Of course, if anyone can do a one-woman show, it's you. You should do. I can't wait to see you in it. Absolutely, you should do it. Because he said that, I thought, yeah, why am I saying I can't? He's right.
Mhm.
And I did it.
And I think that really does. Like Colleen said, it really resonates because I look back and my husband's very supportive of me. However, I can look back, like you said, in your dating years, and you didn't want to shine too bright because you didn't want to outshine. And I think that it really will speak to a lot of women and a lot of our listeners as well. And
It's unfortunate that we feel we have to do that. And it's unfortunate that the majority of the men folk need that. It really is. It puts us as women in a very compromised position going forward as we try to, negotiate a salary or move ahead and look for a promotion or switch jobs or whatever it is. We immediately feel like we're not worthy and we shouldn't. And I think that if we could find a way to boost each other up even more collectively, we'd be able to withstand that kind of stuff and go, no, I'm doing great things and I'm going to continue to. Please just make dinner for the kids.
Right.
Yes.
Just this one night, please. That's
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. Yeah. And the great thing is your sons have seen you do this. So they've seen you in this position. So they're going to do that with their wives and their families, and their children are going to see that. And hopefully it'll just pass on like that.
Yeah, I think so. I'm watching the boys now in their relationships, and they've all chosen very independent, professional, working women, and they are very much in partnerships that are equal with these women, and the women they're with are very, very strong. And I love that. And I like to think that's partially me. In the case of Sam and Lee Boxleitner, that's also their mom, Kitty, my ex-husband's ex-wife, who I adore. And I think, my mom figures into that. My sister figures into that. Their aunts figure into that. And they have all chosen really extraordinary, accomplished, bright, loving, compassionate, funny women. So I'm good.
Well, we hopefully do it so that they take for granted that that's the choice that they can make, because years ago we didn't have all the options that they now have. And it's a real treat to see that us speaking out is giving them a pathway that they can take for granted that maybe wasn't there before.
Well, and with girl children, you really are going to get to see it in a different way than I did with male children. And it's a whole other conversation and another sense of accomplishment as you see them move forward with agency over their own lives. The young women today, I find extraordinary in the strides that our mothers took. It didn't really register with me that much. The real feminists in my life, like Karen Grassley, who played my ma on Little House, those people I could actually see because they were actually out fighting that fight. But my own mother, I didn't really get it until I was an adult and went, oh, smart Barbara, look what she did. But then I look at this next generation, I think, oh my gosh, they're so far ahead in their self-awareness. And then I wonder what my granddaughters are going to be like. I can't wait to watch them grow up. They're going to be extraordinary. I'm convinced that the baby's the next president, and the baby that's coming is the president after her, and they can all just be presidents for all I care.
That would be awesome. And
Yeah.
our future grandchildren can be vice president and secretary of state. We'll just keep the line going.
Yeah.
They can be Supreme Court judges too.
That's right.
Wouldn't
That's
that be
right. Yeah.
It's also interesting in the book when things go still and quiet during the pandemic for you, and you're in this beautiful home that you've created with your own two hands, basically, you start to become more reflective on the serious topics that are hitting our country during that time, and the conversations that you have with Tim and with your son Michael. I think it's so interesting that in the quiet and stillness of that time, it kind of got louder, your opinions, and that you took the time to start reviewing and researching your own thoughts to really educate yourself, because it's never too late. We are constantly learning. We are lifelong learners. And I just thought that part of the book was so interesting. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I think for me too, one of the things that I find so tragic in so many people is a lack of curiosity. I find, there have been leaders of this country who will tell you they know everything and have no desire to learn or grow. And it's so tragic to me. It's tragic to me that they have influence over others, but that's another story. It's tragic to me that that's who they really are, that they don't have an interest in self-examination and trying to grow as people and trying to learn as people. And, I always considered myself to be very empathetic, very sympathetic to other people's plights and lives. But that summer of social unrest and racial reckoning made me realize that I really did not have a clue what I was talking about. It was one thing to be understanding and to feel bad when things happened. It's another thing to realize that there's probably more I could have been doing. And I think allyship has its merits, but it's not enough. And that summer was the summer that required many of us to stand up and say, done. This is unacceptable. And inspired me to look at my own life to see how I enabled bad behaviors and to examine my own privilege and how lucky I am that, yes, I've had some really uncomfortable conversations with my boys, but I never had to talk to them about keeping their hands up on the steering wheel when they got pulled over. That was never an issue. I've had a couple of them have been arrested, and I was never afraid that they would be killed by a police officer. That's a privilege. That's a privilege to not have to live with that fear.
Absolutely. My son brought that up to me as well. He's like, he also, had an issue as well. And he's like, Mom, if I weren't white, I may not have gotten away, or things may not have turned out for me, in a good light if I were not white.
I remember sitting in that beautiful, pristine courtroom in Malibu when one of my kids had been arrested and for drugs. And all of us parents were there together. There were 4 of us, and we were watching the proceedings. And the judge who sentenced Robert Downey Jr., who lives in Malibu, the judge who lives in Malibu, said, "Well, young man, we're not sending you to jail. You're going to get this privilege taken away and this privilege, and you're going to go to court and you're going to report to me. And if after a year you're still living on the straight and narrow, everything's fine." And at that time, I just thought, whew, thank God. Now I look back and go, how blessed and privileged we are. But at the same time, now how do I make sure that other mothers have that same opportunity and other children have that same opportunity? Because it is definitely, we live in an unequal society. And how am I going to fix that? And the best way right now for me to do that is just to keep being loud and talking about it and not let people forget, where we were that summer and how we felt.
Do you think you'll ever dip your toe back into politics? Because I know you kind of stepped in.
I did. And I've said this before. I wouldn't wish multiple spine surgeries on anyone, having gone through so many of them. But I am so grateful that God, Allah, Baba, Muhammad, Abraham, the universe, she, whoever you believe in, decided to have my neck just go kablooey. So I had to have surgery and drop out of that race. Because if I'd had to go to Washington, D.C. and serve for those 4 years, I don't know how I would have handled it. It was a terrible, terrible time politically. It would have been really hard for me and frustrating and upsetting. And it would have taken a toll on my marriage. It would have taken a toll on my kids. And it wouldn't, I don't know. It would just not be, I don't know how anybody does it. I really don't. And so I don't see myself getting involved in larger politics that way. I think I'm a much more effective on the ground, and just remaining loud if possible, and actually being there to do the work with people and help people. And so I don't see myself running for public office again.
Mhm. Yeah. But yeah, that would be very challenging. When you brought up the part about the climate you would have been in had you been elected, it set up a whole nother light bulb for me. Like, oh my goodness, yeah, that would have been your personal health would have
Yeah,
suffered.
my physical health would have suffered, but my mental health would have suffered. I don't do well. I mean, I can handle conflict now like I never have in my life, but I just need to be in a place where I can turn the TV off if it gets to be too much. And if I'm sitting in the room full of Congress people and senators and presidents and screaming, I can't just turn it off. I'd have to stay there, and that would have been a bad thing.
Well, boundaries are not terrible, you know.
Right, right.
Setting a bound.
Don't you find though at this age that that not only can you enforce your boundaries more, but I find that I know what they are now. The thing that I love most about being this age is not that I know what I want, it's that I know what I don't want.
Right.
Absolutely. And how to say no. And Colleen always says, no is a complete sentence. And
I don't need to explain.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, that's it. No is a complete sentence. I love that. That's great. I'm going to use that. I'm stealing.
Feel free. I wish I thought of it, but no, I probably stole it from somebody else. I say sometimes you can add a thank you. No, thank you. But no is a complete sentence. And it's a privilege. You know, we talk about the privileges we've earned because so many women feel as we get older, and we're going to dive right into the aging concept, that things are taken away. You know, I'm no longer a mom. I'm no longer at the top of the corporate realm. They don't look at the privileges that we have earned with this age. And there are so many privileges. And one of those is setting boundaries and not feeling guilty about them or putting ourselves first. Self-care is not selfish. But so many women think, oh, but I've always put my children, my husband, the dog, Mr. Fauci, the chicken, everybody first. And it's okay to say, you know, I need some time for myself. Have you found self-care important as you get older?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for me, the most important pillar of self-care for me is sleep. I have to sleep. I've been a sleeper. I love sleep. My whole life is dedicated. Most of it has been dedicated to just finding the right bed and the right sheets and going to sleep. I love to sleep. And I need 8 hours no matter what. So I am reluctant. I mean, I'll stay up with a grandchild. No questions asked. Absolutely. Like I did with kids. It's what we do, but I won't do it for too many days on end because it's unhealthy for me. And then I'm not operating at my best for the grandchild or for myself. So I know that is a boundary for me. Sleep is key. For me, self-care is starting my morning in a very peaceful way. I have my cup of tea, I have my classical music, I have my Tao meditations. I, do all of my little things. Then I read the news. I don't listen to the news. I don't want to hear a lot of noise in the morning. It just sets my day up the right way. Self-care for me is also embracing exactly who I am and where I'm at that point in that day, whatever the day is. If my back is achy, then odds are I'm not going to go running outside to lift heavy things. I'm just going to listening to my body is another thing that I do more that I didn't do as much when I was younger. I would go until something catastrophic would happen and I wouldn't get a cold or a splinter. I would end up with a broken bone or pneumonia and have to, lay in bed for weeks and weeks. And that's not healthy. So that kind of stuff is important. And I also feel at this age, the age we are now, I think we've earned our opinions and our right to express them.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. We know what we're talking about. We know what we need. And the other thing that the rest of the world needs to really come to realize is who do advertisers think is spending the money?
Yep. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do they really think these 22-year-old size 0 girls are really the ones that are driving the economy? Or is it, the not 20-year-old size, not 1?
Yeah, the
Not
20-year-old Colleen always says using our credit cards.
Right. The
to pay
20-year-old
for the
using
things
mom and
that-
dad's credit
Right.
card.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, I
Yeah.
mean, and ultimately, yeah, dad may be, he will spend money on stuff, but I'm sorry, that's us. We're the grocery
Yeah.
shoppers, we're the house decorators, we're the nurses, we're the seamstresses. And then, we want the stuff for ourselves too.
Yeah. Yeah.
We are powerful consumers, as they say,
Mhm.
and they
We
need to
are.
take notice and speak to us, and we need options. We don't want, there's a lane, you could go to Target and pick out, we're not in the diapers and we're not in the Depends. We're somewhere in between. So make an
Yeah.
aisle for us.
Not
And-
all of us want to wear a muumuu.
Right.
Yeah.
Mind
But
you,
it's okay.
Muumuus have their place, and I have a couple in my closet that I wear, like my house coats, like my
Right.
grandma's house coat. Great, but that's not the only thing we are. We're not just knitters, we're not just chefs, and I think I say this in the book, that one of the things I love most about being this age is that I feel like a secret weapon. I feel like people discount me. Men especially, they just go, oh, she's older, she's not gonna, whatever, like they did when I was younger too, and they'd assume that I was still 12 years old, so she can't possibly know how to whatever it is. And so when they do that, then I can actually bust out some intellect and have everyone in a room I'm in go, oh, she can, she is,
Yeah.
and I used to consider that insulting and an underestimation, and it made me feel bad. Now it makes me feel good because I know that I can go, hey dudes,
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm smarter than you.
Yeah.
And you're just aware of it. And I just think there's such a missed market and opportunity for all of us. Bridget and I talk about that all the time. And we have brands come on that we're like, guys, do you even know this exists for you or that for you? Because like you said, we want to be happy in our own bodies, healthy. Exercise shifts. It's not just to fit in that size, whatever. It's because it feels good on our body, whatever level we're at, whatever movement feels good for our bodies. Eating healthier, which you actually have some recipes in the book, which are great.
Oh yeah.
But eating
Yeah.
farm
Not
to
healthy, though.
table.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
much
Mhm.
different. And for me now, growing food and eating the food, and it's a whole other it's a whole other way, it's a whole other kind of medicine.
Mhm.
Right.
Absolutely. That impressed me so much that you were able to grow this food that you could eat. And I'm from Kentucky. My sister has a flower farm. My family knows how to farm, but I'm awful. I cannot do it.
I'm telling you, I was too. I said it in the book. I kill ice plant
Yeah.
and ivy. I kill ivy. Who kills ivy? I kill
I killed a
bougainvillea.
cactus. Yes.
I killed a cactus too.
Yeah.
I don't understand that. So when it came time to plant this garden, the first thing I said to Tim when we were done was, please don't have any expectations of anything surviving. And lo and behold, it grew. Now, some of it was misplanted and too close together. Like I did grow watermelons that were the size of ping pong balls. So that they were too close together. And I learned, but
Mhm.
other stuff grew that we were able to eat an entire summer. And I ended up being able to can. I made pickles and canned tomatoes and ate them a year later. So it's doable. You just have to learn how to do it.
Yeah.
I learned all about eggs and whether they
Oh,
sink
yeah.
or they float. Who knew? Determining
Yeah.
whether an egg is good.
And
I
Yeah.
had no idea. I had no idea that eggs come with a bloom on them, and that if you don't wipe the bloom off, you can leave them on a kitchen counter in a temperate kitchen for a month, and they'll still be good.
wow. That is
Isn't it?
so wild. And Colleen, I had to laugh. The type of hens that were they death layers? Is that what they were called?
Death
The one-
layers, yes.
Because it related to certain hens go through menopause, of course. And I
Right,
said,
exactly.
Colleen, you're a death layer because Colleen hasn't gone through menopause yet.
I am
I'm
the
like, "Colleen's a
54
death layer,
and never
you are."
ending. Although truthfully, I'm 5 months in now, knock wood. Now
Okay.
that I said
Okay.
that.
Maybe not a death
Oh,
later
really?
yet.
Yes,
Good for
we're
you.
thank you. We're taking the to like Bridget went through it years ago and she had the hot flashes. For me, it
Oh.
was more emotional. I did because I've always had anxiety, but it kind of went and the migraines, horrible migraines.
Outrageous, right? They get better. They do get
Mhm.
better. Mine got better ultimately.
How
Mhm.
was
But
your
perfect.
experience with menopause?
Hot flashes. Um, for me, the hot flashes were hard at first because my heart would start to race and I would think I was having anxiety attacks again, which I thought I was over. So at first it was kind of freaking me out. And that's when I went to the doctor and she said, I said, there's something's not right. I don't know what's going on because I'm still getting my period. Maybe not quite as regularly, but something was going on. And she said, I had my annual physical and she checked my hormones and she said, you don't have anxiety, you have menopause. Your hormones are definitely shifting. And so we had a long conversation about HRT, about hormone replacement therapy and what I wanted to do. And I said, I don't want to do anything. I just want to, I don't want to prolong this. I don't want to go through this again in another 10, 15 years. I also don't want I don't want the risk of, because I don't know what my genealogical background is. I don't want to risk increasing my potential of getting any kind of diseases and cancers from, hormone therapy. So we're just going to go on natural. So I had hot flashes and I still have them all over the house and in every purse. I have these beautiful little Japanese fans. So I just whip out a fan and fan myself. And a little bit of night sweats and whiskers in my chin,
Yeah.
which is so unfair. Like I just finally figured out who I am and I'm comfortable in my skin, but I've got a beard. So what's that?
Yeah, I know.
I feel great about myself, but I have to, and I can't see.
Yeah.
So I have a 20 times magnifying mirror and I sit in the mirror and I pluck the granny whiskers and go about my day.
So true.
I
So
didn't have any of the other horrible symptoms and side effects. So I did pretty well. My sex life stayed pretty much the same. So I didn't really experience anything too bad. I've always had, my mammograms have always been complicated because I have dense breast tissue. So I always end up having ultrasounds after. And now I think I'm regularly going to end up with biopsies because I'm starting to get lots of calcifications. And so that's just aging. Beyond that, normal aches and pains of just getting a little older. And my ankles are a little sore in the morning for the first few steps. And then I'm up and running. I'm good. And I'm in such a different place now too, because I dealt with chronic pain so much in my youth. Now with this neck surgery I had in November of 2020, I no longer have chronic pain. So the aches and pains of being almost 58 years old don't bother me at all. I'm like, this is the good news. Woohoo! I can move my head. I can use my hands. It's great.
It's amazing. You talk about that in the book about your neck surgery, which how many surgeries have you had again? I mean,
on my neck or on just total on my own?
Well, on your the whole back situation,
Spine.
the spine.
The back is four spine surgeries, 4 massive major neurosurgeries. And total lifetime of all the surgeries I've had is like up to 15 at this point. Because I've had a lot of other stuff that I just never even wrote about or talked about that were just,
yeah.
And just dumb stuff that had to get fixed.
And I love the fact that when you were getting wheeled in for the last surgery, it wasn't like, tell my family I love them. It was, have you tried these chips?
Stuffing potato chips.
That's so me. I'd be like, guys, did you taste the whatever?
Well, I was just drugged enough too, I just found out that the kids were having a girl. They texted it on the family thread right before they wheeled me in. And I started to get nervous and they gave me a little bit of a sedative so soon. And the surgeon's a friend of mine. I stayed at his house after the surgery and I've known him since 1992. So it wasn't, the first surgery he did that. I did say that actually, as I was going under, I said, you better not mess this up or my husband and my kids are going to kill you. but this time, I was just comfortable enough to go, hey, you guys tried stuffing flavored potato chips? Because they're the best. And then I was out.
Right.
I bet they hear the best stuff,
Oh yeah, the nurses, I was saying, I can't believe I said that. They said, oh, that's nothing compared to some of the other stuff.
That's probably why they have to have HIPAA laws for what people say when they're under.
Oh yeah. Or when they're just on just a little bit of medication. Because
Yes.
I went from, I'm feeling nervous to, I was just talking about everything.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the transition where you went kind of right around Dancing with the Stars? You were talking about before that, it was Botox and your breast implants and really high, higher maintenance as you were getting older. And as an actress, a lot of women don't feel they have a choice. A lot of women in just society in general don't feel they have the choice but to fight the aging. But after that, you kind of had like an aha moment. It started to let go of all of the stuff you felt you needed to do. What happened that led to that?
I think it's probably a combination of things, but I think it culminated with the wrong for me French dude that I was dating that I wrote about. And then coming out of Dancing with the Stars, where, of course the emphasis was on the physicality and the dance too, but the costumes got smaller and the spray tan got more intense and there was glitter everywhere and hair extensions. And, it's a very, very difficult to attain aesthetic. So that for me was like the epitome of that super thin. So I was a size 0 when that show ended. I was wearing Peter Murgatroyd's costumes from the year before, which is ridiculous because I would look at her body and go, I remember those days. And even when I was at my most fit in my 20s, I didn't look like that. Well, by the end of the show, I was wearing her clothes. And that, that gave me a sense of accomplishment at that point. And then I was dating this guy who was also the same. Everything to him was external. Nothing was internal. It was all about how everything looked and everyone appeared. And he didn't like that I wore glasses, which, like that it was those things that made me go, what am I doing? And I think I wrote about this in the book, the patio cover from the house that I was in fell on my head. And aside from, it compressing my neck again, and then ultimately having surgery and having stitches in my head, it literally felt like God was just smacking me on the head and going, what are you doing? You've lost your mind. You've gone too far. Back off. And I took it as that and thought, it's time to start being comfortable with who I am and it's time to stop trying to be someone I'm not. And also the knowledge that it was only going to get harder. I mean, age is inevitable, right? What am I going to do? Am I going to really want to be looking 30 when I'm 80? How insane is that? And how much work is that? And how much time in your life are you going to spend to that when you could be spending time doing, I don't know, traveling, going to a museum, volunteering with children who are sick, volunteering at the nursery at the local hospital, cuddling and feeding newborns. I'd much rather do that than sit in a dermatologist's chair.
Mhm.
Absolutely. We had Leslie Ann Warren on the show last year, and she said that now she looks in the mirror and she takes a nice look and then she goes, whatever. And then she walks away. And I love that because it's one of the least important things in her life. She's just like, whatever. It is.
Yes, it is what it is. It is what it is. And there are times where I look in the mirror and I go, oh, not bad. Nice one, lady. You have those days, and then there are days where I just don't want to look. I just don't want to know. I'm just going to keep moving.
So what's next for you? You've written this book, and do you think you'll be doing some more acting or maybe because as you say, aging on Broadway is welcomed and applauded, unlike Hollywood. I think you might do some more.
I did a play last year in Chicago, almost the entire winter. We opened, it was a new play. We opened in October and we were supposed to run through March, but then Omicron hit and the audiences stopped coming. And then everyone in the company started getting it. And then it reached the point where there were so few of us, we couldn't actually do the show. So we'd have to start canceling. And so the decision was made right about New Year's to pull the plug. So we came home, but I was in Chicago for months, acting in a play. and having a great time with an incredible company of actors. So I got my acting yayas in for a minute. I have a few irons in the fire, but nothing concrete I can talk about. I am in conversations about launching a lifestyle line that goes along with this. And so that will be coming at some point. But also very female focused, very female forward, all female artisans. And I think we're probably going to launch with crafting first, since that's the thing I picked up the most. Knitting and cross stitch and cooking and gardening and, you know, all of that stuff. And for right now, I don't feel like I'm missing anything. So I don't feel like I have to act. If something comes along that I want to do, that's great. Like I had an audition for an independent feature that shoots in Montana in June and July. And it was kind of an interesting movie and an interesting idea. And Tim's working then here in doing a play up here where we live in the Catskills. And I've never seen him on stage. And my first thought was, I don't want to go. And so I wrote my agents and I said, you know, I still got book stuff to do in June, and Tim's doing a play. And thank you so much for submitting me, but I don't want to go right now. I really want to focus on these things that are coming. And they wrote back and went, great, good, fantastic. I said, don't forget me. This doesn't mean I'm never going to do this again. But right now, it just doesn't, I don't think that buys me anything in my life. I've got the retail thing starting. I've got another series that I'm pitching that could happen. We don't know. So I'd rather focus on those things. And I do have a lot of commitments with this book, a lot of signings and fundraisers for various organizations that I really don't want to miss.
And you have the freedom to say no now. I mean, you have that.
I do. Also, it's not just me supporting everybody. It's the two of us. And, you know, we're a partnership. I mean, I obviously discussed it with him first. And I said, how do you feel about this? And he said, don't go. You don't have to go right now. Why? If you feel pressured, don't do it.
That's awesome.
Any chance there's going to be a 30-something?
I was going to ask that,
I
Colleen.
had to ask. I love that show, and I'm just so sad that during the pandemic it got put on hold. But you think they'll?
Yeah.
So are we. I know that the guys still really want to try and make it happen. I don't know if they can, because everybody's, you know, pretty much working all the time. So we'll see what happens. I'm hopeful that they'll be able to do it, because I'll tell you, if you liked 30-something, the scripts of what was coming were really amazing. Tim was sneaking them to me. I wasn't supposed to be reading them, but oh well.
Well, we would have a watch party, Colleen, for sure.
Yes, we would.
Oh, I think it would be so awesome. And to see that group of actors together again is like a dream come true. They're all so brilliant. Like I said in the book, that's one of the most incredible ensembles I've ever seen on television. And the idea of getting them all back together is irresistible. So I'm hopeful too, as a fan.
Right.
I'm hopeful.
Absolutely. Oh gosh. Well, we just want to say thank you so much for coming on. Best of luck with this book. If you know, when the lifestyle line comes out, please let us know. We would love to support it as well.
Love that.
And just thank you for the book, and for just loving your age and growing as you get older, because as we like to say, aging is living. Feeling old is optional. You don't have to feel old. You can age and just have it be a part of your life. So thank you for being a great example of that.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I hope that, you know, that there are more and more and more of us who join this hopeful movement of, you know, of being all that we are at the age that we are at whatever moment we're at in our lives. It's, you know, we're enough. It's enough.
That's exactly. We are
Yes,
enough.
thank
We know you
you.
are super swamped with the book, so we appreciate this. It'll go out on the 12th. I'll send all the information to the PR people, and enjoy.
Thank you.
That was such a fantastic conversation. I still am a little bit, I always feel like I'm in a surreal world after I talk to someone that we grew up watching on TV. It's really amazing, but it is so wonderful to find someone. She is just a sweet person. You know,
Really
it's
is.
just when they cast Laura Ingalls, little did they know that they cast this child that really had that spirit in her. I don't know how they were able to find that, but they really were. And she really is a fantastic person. And I think it's just amazing what she has learned just continues to learn. I mean, learning all that farming thing to do, that is not easy. I mean, she and I discussed how we killed plants, we killed cactuses, and that's not an easy thing. And just, I could smell when she was cleaning out that house and all the
right.
stuff and everything in there. You will really enjoy this book. So really make sure you get back to the prairie.
Absolutely. And I think she just has a sense of peace about her. That's really wonderful. It's an energy that actually can radiate through the screen. Because sometimes I think when we're talking through Zoom, we almost feel like we're on a television, you know what I mean? Like, but she had this energy that just radiated through the screen, and just so happy for her. And anytime Melissa and Tim want to have dinner with us, please come visit.
Here in Nashville. We'll go out.
We'll go to the Catskills.
We'll go to Catskills.
Because now I'm dying to see the house that she put so much of her heart and soul into. Make sure you are subscribed to the podcast, guys, and follow us on all forms of social media. You will find us there, Hot Flashes and Cool Topics. We share tips and tricks and life and the episodes, but so much more. So make sure you're following us on there. Join us on our Facebook group. We are always there asking questions, and our group's amazing. So have a great day, guys. We will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.